Hey Obi, my only consistent viewer. Who else will be watching this? Devin, are you here? Oh, you too, Matt. You gotta give me that third view eventually.
Hello! For this video, I've ranked every Paladin skin because I make good use of my time. There's a lot of skins in this game and I want to get into it pretty quick here, but I'll briefly specify a few things I value in terms of rankings. Note, I won't be bringing up all these points in every single short summary for every skin, but for every single skin, assume that I have taken these things into consideration. The quality of the skin, how detailed the skin is, the overall skin theme, and how well the theme integrates with the character itself. Those are my primary factors. Other things like voice packs and unique effects can make a difference as well, but I won't take anything away from skins that don't have any of them. I just consider them bonuses. This is the tier list format. Woo. Both I and my girlfriend analyzed every skin, and throughout the list I'll just call her Lizzie to preserve our online ambiguity for a couple more seconds. Hopefully, as both of us reviewed every skin, that'll help with a couple of our extreme biases. Probably not though, that's what SS is for. I'll be covering every champion alphabetically, and their skins chronologically, so we'll start with Androxus here. One last thing though, skins that were released on and after the 4.6 Trickshot update will all be ranked after every previous skin, just cause we started ranking them beforehand, and I didn't upload those assets to the tier list until after we ranked them all, so yeah. Basically all the very newest skins, they're going to be ranked after everything else. That's everything. Again.
Oh yeah, also because of internet issues, a lot of the background gameplay will be all bots, so sorry about that. Also, don't mind the inconsistency in quality because I recorded this all over several months, so anyway, move on to the video. Androxus' first skin, not counting recolors, is Exalted. This is one of my favorite old skins. Doesn't break character, it's lower quality because it's obviously old, but it is extremely easily mix and matchable. It is hardly offensive, but doesn't have any original gun. It's basically like Androxus just put on a new pair of clothes, and I honestly really love it for that. Even though I have to admit, it isn't really anything special. It was just made to match a recolor of his gun back in the day. So basically, as it were, there isn't too much interesting going on, but there isn't anything offensive going on, and it still is and looks like Androxus, so yeah. B tier. Next is Imperator. I'm still going to count these kinds of recolors. I'm just going to put them just below or above the original skin, and no more or no less. I'm not really going to have much to say about them, so I'll make it quick whenever I do talk about them. This one's coloring is just a little more interesting, but less mix and matchable, so in my opinion, it's not quite as good. Alright, Androxus' next original skin is Huntsman. The voice pack is pretty cool. It's a little plain because of its being old. The quality isn't quite as good when compared to a lot of the newer skins, obviously. The gun looks really cool, and honestly the effects are really cool too, but it is a little bit clunky, both in use and just in look. There's a few odd color contrasts, and again, because it's old, it is a little bit plain, not quite as detailed as some of our pretty modern skins. Face is also a little bit dull in my opinion. Not a huge fan, but the werewolf arm and the hat, it's pretty sick. C tier. Good, but slightly offensive. Okay, Steam Demon. Again, I really like the voice pack. There's a nice mud on the boots, nice detail for an old skin. In general, honestly, a lot more detail than I would expect for an old skin. The gun looks sick, and the arm carries over Androxus' main deal with the arm and expresses it in a really interesting kind of steampunk way. The face looks really interesting, and it sticks to a really good theme, even if it's a little bit overused. But yeah, mix and matching is great. This is a great skin, honestly. Still old and suffers the effects of that, but everything else kind of makes up for it in that sense. So in my opinion, tis A. Fallen. Oh dear. One of my personal favorite skins for Androxus. Colors are unique and really cool. Still mix and matchable, which considering the colors that are pretty unique, it's hard to do that, but they are still mix and matchable. Androxus' original concepts are expanded on with the skin's theme just flawlessly. Always a fan of these kind of abstract pyre themes, but this one is just done phenomenally. The voice pack is fun, and honestly, just the sounds and overall gameplay of this skin is just fantastic. S tier for sure. Battlesuit Godslayer. Okie doke. What do I say about this one? All the battlesuit skins in general are at least somewhat self-aware that it's a rather silly theme. It's really out of the league of Paladins as a whole, but at least it is somewhat self-aware. This one, though, it seems to take it a little bit too far and comes out a little bit obscene with all these spikes and techie things just sticking out everywhere. It's kind of cringe. The colors are honestly for me. It's just too much, and yet it also just doesn't seem somehow detailed enough to be cool. It looks like a plastic toy. The theme could have been cool, I feel, but it's a bit too much. It's lost potential. The gun model is cool, but it suffers from the very plasticky, very spiky kind of deal, just like the rest of the skin. Just looks like a toy. If the body was slimmed and sleeker, maybe it would look good, but in my opinion, D tier. I would say it's certainly the worst of the battlesuit skins overall.
Alrighty, Steel Forged. The overall pattern for his armor is honestly a little repetitive. It doesn't look terrible, but it's just not very interesting. There's also a lot of strange fin-like structures coming off of his armor, even his gun to some extent. His arm, or his cursed arm this time around, is just kind of a rocky, jagged mess. It doesn't really look that great. The whole skin is jagged and bulky, honestly. The cape is, it's a cape, it's uninspired. It looks like it's trying to be sleek at some parts, but it just looks really chunky on others. The colors are kind of dull, but the gun is really cool and pretty creative looking. But the color doesn't really match the skin for some reason. The whole skin's alright. I have a lot of things wrong with it, but I would still use it nonetheless. C tier. Dragon Forged. It's nicer on the eyes. The gun matches. Although I feel the armor and gun color isn't quite as good, his arm does look a lot better. And the overall colors kind of flow together a little nicer, I feel. Yeah, this one's better. Alright, Avatar. For such a whack design idea, this honestly carries over really well. I mean, I'd imagine turning a controller into a character is hardly an easy thing to do. That being said, that does come with a few drawbacks for sure. The slim to bulkiness in the limbs are really jarring to look at. It really breaks a lot of the symmetry that I'm seeing. The cape by itself isn't very creative. I feel like it's a really standout part of it, and it could have had some really cool effects like other skins have. Instead, it's just kind of a pixel texture stuck on it. It's not very interesting. The gun is really cool. I honestly use it even on other skins. The details are very good. Overall, the skin is quite janky though. And the voice pack, oh god, the voice pack.
Androxus in the house!
Atrocious is the word I'm looking for. Overall, good skin, but there's just so much weirdness about it. Concept is very strange, and it's carried over quite well, but it does naturally have some drawbacks to it. So in my opinion, C tier. Anyway, modded is Avatar's recolor. The color scheme looks less like a classic controller, but it does have a lot better effects, and the shiny triangle textures are more present, so that's nice, I guess. Overall, a lot of the details can be seen a lot better. I think this one's above it. Okie doke, Androxus is done, move on to Ash. Ronin. This is more or less a classic and one of my favorite older skins. Everything's great, honestly, except for the headpiece. Back in the day, it wasn't really a problem because you could take off the headpiece, but they kind of got rid of that, so yeah. The details are really good. Quality is also very good, despite it being quite old. The helmet, it's good for the theme, but like I said, it just doesn't look great. I really just prefer her normal hair. The gun looks baller. It's awesome. The flag also looks really cool, but it could have been all flowy. Come on. The skin overall just comes together really beautifully. Really slick and really good to look at. Except for the hat. A tier. Xenobuster. There isn't really too much to say about the skin. There's nothing really offensive, but also nothing really not so fun. It kind of just looks like they put Ash in another alternate universe, which is good, but there's just nothing really interesting that pops out when you look at this skin. Not really too creative. It really does just look like a soldier, and that's really it. The theme didn't really allow for too much creativity, but the details are nice, and let's be real, it does look quite good. The weapon is passable. It looks good, but overall isn't too interesting. Kind of like the skin as a whole, honestly. I quite like it, but it is nothing terrifically interesting, despite being nice to look at, and overall aesthetically well designed. Street style. Oh boy. First of the street style skins. Oh boy. Look at those shoes. What the f***? It's a little too memey. It's hard to tell if that's good or bad. It's not really creative at all. This will become obvious later, but I really do not like skins that just slap on normal human clothes and call it a day. It's just not interesting to me. It's boring. It's got a bunch of little dog plushies on her, and she shoots dog plushies themselves, which is honestly kind of baller. The hat looks... I don't like the hat. It's so out there in a weird way that it's actually kind of boring. The gun is sleek. I think that's probably the best thing I can say about it. The skin is anything but, and the overall colors of the entire thing are just... ouch. Looking at the entire thing, just as a whole, no thank you. I wouldn't use this skin, and the street style formula, in my opinion, doesn't really work for any character, but it works for Ash probably the least out of any character, especially the ones they chose. That's a D. Skadrin. I believe that's how you say it. This is one of those rare skins that has a lot of weird pokey details, but actually isn't very overwhelming. The tail is a lovely detail that they didn't need to add in, but they did. Really cool. The ribbons are sick. The whole skin is asymmetrical, which is cool. There's really nothing offensive, honestly. There's so much going on in this skin, but you can really tell what's going on just by looking at it. I just feel like it's really well designed. Being a Skadrin, or however you say that, it just reminds me of Talus, but just a better version of him in a weird way. Really good. I really like it. Very high quality and terrific details. S tier. Scorned. The face has a slightly different design. I'm not as much of a fan of it. I don't think it's as cool, but the red skin is a nice touch. Still not as good as the original in my opinion, but still pretty cool. Moving on to Atlas. He just has one skin, but at least it's a pretty damn good one. Seems to have something to do with horses. I'm not sure why that's all over the place. It kind of reminds me of a chess piece, which is honestly really cool. If it cannot look like something at all, but still remind you of something, that earns points in my book. It's got a funny little horse in his head, which I think is really funny. Plus, like said, it looks like chess, so that means he's smart, and that's
good. He's got fancy little wings, not really offensive at all. It's not really extremely detailed, but the details that it has are good. Quality overall is really good and just looks beautifully sleek. I don't really have anything wrong with this skin. It doesn't hugely stand out, but it looks beautiful. And the gun is just an absolute upgrade from the original. A tier.
Just realized I forgot to say where Xenobuster goes. She goes in A. Or was it B? I think it's B.
Alright, Barik's next. Team Fortress 2. It's old, but it's good, man. I don't know anyone who dislikes this skin. It's one of those skins that's kind of funny, but not cringy in any kind of fashion. The voice pack is just perfect for what it is. And overall, I mean, it is good for being old. He has a helmet and he has like nice little goggles. Everything is brought over perfectly, and there's hardly a better theme that works better with Barik. He is an engineer after all. His reload even gets a new animation, so what's not to love about this skin? Okay, for real though, it is old, and the quality does suffer because of that. But I mean, that's like the only thing I can really say against this skin, so yeah. A tier. Swashbuckler. This is, in my opinion, one of the most generic skins in the entire game. Yes, it works well for what it is, but it is just a pirate. It's just not very creative, not detailed. There's nothing wrong or offensive, but just there's nothing crazy cool about it. The theme carries over quite well, but no creativity is added. It's just stereotypes. That being said, the gun is kind of cool, but it's just boring. That's the best way I can describe it. There's just nothing interesting. If you like pirates, this is a great skin, but if you don't like pirates, there's nothing for you here. C tier for uncreativity. Steel Forged. A lot of cool details here. Honestly, really good skin. I remember people going crazy about this when it first came out. The main problem I see here is that because he's so small, the details can be just nauseating. There's just way too much visual noise. Concepts are good, but just hard to see. The gun just blends into all the crazy details. Everything looks cool and the gun is really cool, but there's just way too much noise. When I look at the skin, I just get confused. My eyes don't know where to look. Maybe I'm just stupid? I'm perfectly fine with that conclusion, but my eyes just look at his face and then everything else just blurs into a overly detailed mess. C tier. Dragon Forged. It's a little bit easier on the eyes, but that's about it. Okay, Bomb King. Starting with Biz King. I'm aware that this is basically a recolor, but I figured I'd include it anyway. Might as well have some fun with this. I know that technically means it's probably not going to end up too high, but oh well. So this skin has no weapons. It looks pretty sleek despite being hardly more than a recolor. The changes are good for what it is, and he's got a dollar bill on his forehead, which I think is like the only change, or at least the only noticeable one. He's also got a tie, so cool. Fun skin. C tier, just because it's really hard to compare it to a lot of the other skins. You can kind of think of it as this is what would happen if you compared a actual recolor to the default skin to, you know, a full major skin. C tier. Did I say C tier already? I don't remember. Pumpkin. The theme is fucking great. The effects are great. The voice pack is great. Honestly, everything about the skin just feels very efficient. A lot of it is carried over from the original skin, but you could hardly notice that. This is a really old skin, but it's got really good details, and the quality of the effects really aren't that bad. Limbs are boring though. They are clearly recolors. He has fun alt music though, like when he's doing his ultimate. You know, I'm actually going to give it some credit for being so old. I do want to also take in consideration a little bit the time which they were released in. This one really stood out for being one of the best skins back in the day. I'm going to give it a little bit of credit for that and put it all the way up in low S. Abominable. The theme works really great. The snow is a little odd and clumpy, but really not that bad. Bomb King's such a weird character. He just gets so many weird ass skins. I don't get it. Or more so weird themes to adapt into skins. It's so weird. Anyway, both the hats on Grumpy Bomb and Bomb King's own head look dapper as fuck. Not many details overall. Doesn't really take anything away from it that doesn't have details, but it really doesn't add anything either. His little bomb's teeth look kind of dumb. I don't know, that bothers me. The alt music is groovy though, as usual. Really nothing wrong with this skin, but nothing super creative either. Really worked out quite well though. Better than I would have expected it to. I like how he just kind of looks like an inanimate object, like a snowman brought to life, you know, similar to how Bomb King's original design kind of also reflects that. A tier. Twitch Prime King. Again, also kind of just a recolor, but slightly different, so I mean, it's here. It kind of has this Grover Winter effect where a lot of details from the original skin are taken away, even though it's still just technically a recolor. It looks sleek and really isn't offensive at all, I guess. It's just somehow even less than the original skin. The only real interesting detail is that his fuse is now a cord, so cool. But let's be real, this skin was mostly a shill anyway. Not a big fan. I consider this even lower than most recolors. Love Machine. It commits to the bit. Respect. With that being said, it looks terrible. It's funny. The voice pack is funny. The weapons are not interesting or cool. Yeah, it looks terrible. No details or any uniqueness. It just relies on memes to be good. The cape is fine. The face doesn't match his body, and the eyes are fucking wild. Honestly, this is a recolor. and I hate it. Trying to turn Bomb King into something that possibly even resembles a human is a crime against humanity. This skin physically makes me want to throw up. There, I said it, F tier. I hate this skin. Digitized. The concept just works terrifically. There's not too much detail, but really, it's all good. The effects are terrific, the face is cute. Doesn't look much like Bomb King, but somehow it's just executed so damn well. The skin changes the entire body, but still keeps BK kind of BK-ish. The quality is very high. It just has so many good little details. It's just an amazing skin. Which is funny, because I'm not even a big fan of this skin. I just feel like it's a great skin. I like to think the concept and the execution just together made a really high tier skin. S tier. Honey King. BK isn't BK anymore. Again, they just slap random themes on BK. Why? Sometimes it works out really well with digitized, and then there's this guy. Is that Winnie the Pooh? The fuck are those weapons?
2 balls and a bomb.
The concept is so not Bomb King that it just tears itself apart. It just looks awful. With the model trying to simulate Bomb King's physiology, but into a bear-like structure. Not to mention it just ruins any essence of BK at all. And the weapons are, what are they? They're just orbs. I hate them. I really hate this skin. Terrible. F tier, for sure. In my opinion, this is probably the worst skin in the entire game. And there are people out there that actually like this skin, so I'm surprised, but I hate it. Oh yeah, it has a recolor. Polar bear. I don't care. Just put it above it or below. I don't care. Okay, next is Buck. Commando. Okay, keep in mind this one was actually based on his old default, so there are a few things that are actually a little less impressive than it might seem. For instance, his legs are the same as his old default. With that being said, this skin is actually quite good, especially considering how old it is. If it was out at the time that his old default skin was still his default, that's obviously quite a long time ago. This skin doesn't come with a weapon, but it is pretty sleek. It is a bit chunky, but that's also just his character. There's nothing really offensive, looks suave, it has nice jewels, and has a lovely hat too. Nothing bad, but it isn't a huge difference from his original. I'm a fan of it, but mostly just because it feels like an alternate clothing set for Buck. That's really it. Nice skin, but nothing crazy or out there. I see. Triggerman. I don't know which came first, Kingpin or Triggerman. I have Triggerman written down first, so I'll just talk about that one first. The gun looks really cool. I'll be the first to say it looks very out of place in Paladins as a whole. There aren't really any details to speak of, but it is slick, I guess. He's got glasses and he looks really dapper. The skin mostly holds up just because it's funny, and that's really it. I think it doesn't really bring anything new to the table at all. It's just normal person clothes, but the gun is cool and the sunglasses make him look sick anyway, so low B tier. Kingpin. Slightly less slick looking, but more details, so got a nice little handkerchief, gold glasses, debatably the better gun as well. The color scheme is a little better, but I mean, there's not really too much details to make interesting with the color scheme, so yeah. Overall, this one's probably better. Buck Wild. It's supposed to be funny, so I can't really dock points on it for being a bit off-putting. It does have a lack of details due to it being simple. Again, very similar to the Kingpin and Triggerman. It doesn't carry over to Paladins quite so well. Buck's core theme is carried over, kind of being a bit of a wild one, but Paladins plus modern wrestling, not exactly the greatest fit. It's almost intentionally ugly. Super memey and pretty funny, not in a bad way, but it does make it hard to rank. Oh, I guess I should mention as well, it doesn't come with a gun, so that's a bit unfortunate. At least he's got like the shoulder pad being his belt thingy, which is actually kind of an interesting detail, but that's really about it. Overall, just having skin and wrestling equipment is pretty lacking in the details department, and the quality ain't so great anyway, so yeah. I say C tier. Being funny can only take you so far. Buckles. It seems a little uninspired since we don't really understand the reference. Apparently I wrote down in my notes that I get the reference now, but I don't. So I guess I lied. The details are good, but it does have so many that a few of them are a little bit useless per se. The gun is really cool though, and the bear head looks really good. Overall, not very offensive, but a little bit too much going on there. Really works for Buck, and he has some facial hair, which is kind of interesting. B tier. Ripjaw. This is not Buck anymore, but really not as bad as the others. Head looks a little artificial because it doesn't really move or blink, but I mean, those details are crazy, and with no overdoing it or excess noise or anything like that, like damn, this skin looks amazing. I think of all characters that they could have carried over into a shark, I mean, Buck's probably the best choice, but I can't deny that I don't exactly see much of Buck in there. The gun is really good for the skin, but not too interesting or mix and matchable. Tons of details though, and like I said, the quality. Clipping. Great orange. The color pops a lot more and looks pretty good. A lot of the gold is now silver, and there's a lot of blue to contrast to this orange, which I think is honestly pretty cool. And this one's a bit better, I just think it pops out more so. So, Cassie. This is where some of my pretty obvious biases come in. I obviously don't mean it to be biased, and I've tried to balance what I think about the skins with that bias, but there is no mistaking some of these skins are going to be higher than they should. Okay, Northern Watch. A lot of older skins really get across that idea of this is just another thing they're wearing on this one day for some reason. And this really gets that point across, but also just seems to be really high quality for some reason. It's sleek as fuck. Everything matches lovely, the proportions are consistent, how everything is. The fur looks nice and cozy and fuzzy and doesn't look bad like in some other skins. And as much as I admire it, it uses the same model as your old default, yet you really wouldn't be able to tell. I know other older skins have done that, but oftentimes it's really noticeable, but this one I really hardly notice at all. The biggest issue, of course, is it has no weapon, but aside from that, really I don't have anything bad to say about this skin. It's definitely the best of the old sort of skins that also didn't have unique, weapons, headpieces, that kind of thing. Yes, feel free to call me biased for this one, I don't mind. Keeping things strong with Nightbane. It's got a Raven. It's honestly one of the slickest skins in the game. The weapon is sick, the hat is sick, the leather looks great, details are fantastic, black and neon green are fantastic combinations, the boots are fantastic. The voice pack is the only thing that's not fantastic.
Release them from their pain.
It's alright. I don't know exactly how to say this, but it's my favorite skin of the game. Again, for being old, the quality is extremely high. I remember when I first played this game, this was the first skin that I really tried to get, and honestly, I don't think that would change if I started playing the game now. Still, my favorite part of it is probably the hat. Plus, I mean, it follows the theme of Cassie being a hunter and all that stuff, so that really adds to it as well. SS, because of course it is. Blood Moon is good. Red is good. This is just better Nightbane, which is already top tier. In fact, I kind of take back what I said about Nightbane, because this is technically my favorite skin. Anyway, yeah. It's above. Sunkissed is one of the better beach skins, which really isn't saying much. One good thing about it is even though it's a beach skin, it doesn't look like it limits itself to the very beachy aesthetic. With a bunch of other skins, they're always just limited to only swimsuit and only water gun or something like that. And granted, this skin doesn't have a gun, but at least it's not limited to that. The quote-unquote swimsuit or whatever the heck she's wearing, it doesn't give off a modern look. The design is actually quite nice. Still looks like Cassie as well. Like said, no weapon unfortunately, but the different bird is always sick, and I remember especially when the bits and pieces were a thing, the hair and glasses were terrific to go on any other skin, but they're great in the skin as well. Not too many details overall though. What it's got is alright. Cassie's overall theme with her clothing carries over slightly. The voice pack is
Get away from me, creep.
Cassie's general theme with her clothing in general and a couple of the details there carries over slightly. And lastly, her voice pack is intentionally atrocious, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but honestly I don't care. B tier. Copacabana. Being a recolor of Sunkissed, the color pops out a lot more in my eyes. Black hair Cassie is something to behold. I like the blue gems better as well, but the bird looks ill, like physically ill. Still, I think it's above the original, just a little bit. Dune Crawler is based on a character I don't like. Aside from that, it's pretty sick. The bird is a robot bird, which is, for what they could have made, is really cool. Looks great with the theme and looks Cassie. I don't see how they could have executed it better alongside the theme. The headpiece is nice. I feel like they could have done something a little more interesting, but it is nice. Like a lot of other Cassie guns to come, the gun is too bulky in first person and a little annoying to aim with. Still looks very slick and isn't offensive at all. Hey, Dragon Collar. This Leon skin, I mean... The bird is a fucking dragon. He's buff as hell. That's baller. The odd green material makes it kind of look like a sleeping bag. Proportionally, the skin is awkward. The colors are kind of inconsistent. They're a bit odd. The whole skin's odd, really. The hair doubling as her cape is kind of cool, though, despite being very easily confused with another character. The design in general is cool. It just doesn't flow perfectly. There's a lot of weird little chunky bits in certain portions that aren't too satisfying. Despite everything, though, the cons are not too offensive. Still somewhat satisfying, and what's slick is slick. The weapon, however, is not particularly interesting or sleek at all. Bulky, pretty uncreative in my opinion. And I'll say one more thing about the weapon because it's just not easy to use. It's bulky and annoying. I know that's technically gameplay, but it does alter my opinion of it just a little bit. Alright, moving on to Corvus. Pyre Lord Magnus. The skin looks real bulky for just being a PP healer. Like, it looks like he should be a tank or something. It's impractical. The colors are boring and stereotypical. The knife looks like it was made for a child. I think the little wing thingies are cool, but there is a bit too much fire effects as well. It is a bit obnoxious. The helmet at best looks odd. Gun is pretty alright. Has plenty of cons, but still rounds out as kind of okay. D. It's alright, just I wouldn't use it if I had literally any other skin of his. Speaking of any other skin of his, Count. He's a shiny boy. Good effects, sounds, the blood is cool, the whole thing's really sleek. Weapons look great, the colors are sick, the hair pops, super nice. Not too detailed for being new, but kind of intentionally. The details it has are honestly great. I think the main con of this skin is that it's kind of narrowed down to a pretty generic stereotype, but I do see some good differences in combination with meshing together Corvus's design that really makes this stand out. I'm a big fan of this skin. S tier. Midnight Royal. The colors are a lot more dull. The knife still glows red, which doesn't match the skin anymore considering, you know, the colors will change. The hair is just the same color as the rest of the skin, and it doesn't pop, so it's a little more boring. Still fine with details, but yeah, not as good. Everyone's favorite Dredge. Yay. Okay, this is a case where I'm very biased against, but I tried really hard to make it somewhat fair. So honestly, a lot of these skins are bumped up, maybe even more so than they should. I might have overcompensated, I'm not quite sure, but it is what it is. Just so you know, I made a lot of effort to try not to be biased in this case. Merrymaker. Should have been Torvald. First thing I'll say is, in my opinion, the theme doesn't really fit Dredge. The shoes are really weird. Also gets rid of the, like, squid on the gun, aka the only good thing about Dredge. But yeah, the details are reasonably good. Quality's okay as well. The white, like, Santa fluffies don't look fluffy, they look all spiky. I'm not really too sure what to say. The whole skin just looks a little antiquated, maybe dull. The gun is nice, kind of sleek, but a little dull as well, especially without the squid, like I said. Maybe I'm just not a fan of Dredge, but yeah, I'm not a fan of this skin. I do see what they were going for, but I partially feel like it just could have been done so much better on another character. Plus certain details were just, I don't know, feel unfitting, even if a lot of them are still good. C tier. Omega. Okay, this skin, despite being connected to Dredge, I really quite like. It's super sleek. The particle effects are really cool, although the particle effects on his gun do clip with the robo tentacles. But speaking of which, the robot squid is, well, it's sick. I love him. All those tubes and liquid stuff all look really cool. Details, although not a ton, are good. The gun is very bulky and not very interesting aside from the squid, I will say. And the mask also looks a bit stiff. Kind of like a Bionicle mask. It looks a little plain. That being said, just taking a quick glance at this skin, it looks very impressive. Very slick, very interesting, nothing offensive. I would like Dredge better if he were this. Being an Omega skin, there wasn't really any huge creative steps to make this one super unique. It just looks really good and is high quality. A tier. Bare bones. Well, the theme certainly matches the character. The skeleton theme, I mean, we haven't seen that in any other character, and is executed very well. The fuck is filling his pants? It overall looks a little messy. The mold textures are weird, not very crisp. I get that that's what they were going for, but it still bothers me a little bit. One very disappointing thing is that the gun is a complete copy-paste recolor of Merrymaker's. Really lazy looking. Skin standards are high these days, and reusing a gun is really weird and kind of out of place. The gun doesn't even really match the skin at all either. It's too shiny. In any case, the barnacles and details in general are very good. I just feel like the mold looking details weren't executed too well. They looked a little strange. The skull looks really good though, really detailed. I just don't like it. Hey. Alright, Drogoz Dreadhunter. If the skin were new, I wanted to mention that the gun would be all wiggly and dripping with coolness. That's just what I typed down. But it is true that skin is pretty old, and if it was updated or made nowadays, it would be a lot more interesting and probably be a lot more moving parts. So that is a slight con to it, but I can't really hold it back because this is a pretty old skin. The details aren't subtle, but they're all good. The gun is sleek and the bullets are funny because they're eggs. They somehow pulled off the whole skin looking bulky and organic, but somehow super sleek too. It looks slimy, which is good. It doesn't really have any fancy textures, I guess, but I mean, it doesn't really need it. I've used this skin for so long and I just never really gotten tired of it. There's nothing really bad about this skin per se. It's just like, oh no, it's not super new. So it suffers a little bit from that. But aside from that, this skin was executed very, very well. This is one of my favorite skins in general. S tier. Terramorph. The colors are more stimulating, and by that I mean red. Higher. DZ03 Draco. It's a bit bulky to be sure. The edges of the body kind of look plasticky. Not too much details as well contribute to the kind of plasticky toy look. Maybe that was intentional, I'm not too sure, but it is a bit off-putting. The whole gun looks pretty plasticky in general. The colors honestly kind of blend into each other, but the body texture looks cool. Aside from those small gripes, I feel like the model itself does look pretty cool aside from the bulkiness. Plus the gun does look alright. The gun sounds are really loud though. The gun effects, just to note, also do not scale with low particle graphics. Like the shots basically just don't show up if your graphics are low. B tier. Abyssal Lord. Here we go. My only complaints are the shoulder pads grow out of their details. What? I don't know what that means, but I know we're gonna put this really high anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Hooves. Sick. The gun looks awesome. It's got cool wings, and just in general, Drogoz, the freaking dragon, finally has wings. The glowy purple looks woo. It's good. He's got a metal jaw for some reason, but it's cool. But yeah, he has also got bones and rotting flesh and stuff. Or just all the details in general are really cool. I also like the horns. This guy just has so much good stuff, like really standout details, alongside his generally good quality. My only real complaint, aside from that one that I wrote down at the beginning apparently, is that his quality kind of doesn't match up to what it would be modernly, but again, that doesn't really matter. It looks fantastic. The concept is just creative and just makes Drogoz look badass. Definitely his best skin, and I think it's Lizzie's personal favorite. She's a Drogoz main, so found her to be a bit biased as well, but I mean, I agree with her, so, you know. Yeah, SS tier. Oh, how one could drop so low. Yeah, next is Pyre Warrior. It's bad. It's got these stubby ass wings. The face looks god awful. Kind of weird to say, because I know people like this skin, but we just hate it. The tail looks out of place for sure. There's no other way to put it.
The gun looks pretty cool.
There's a book on his butt, but he probably can't read and probably hasn't read it. He doesn't blink either. Birds blink, right? No, that's cats who don't blink. They have 3 eyelashes. The more you know. The colors at least are pretty fine. He's got some small details that are alright at best. The main draw to this skin, I feel like, was probably bird, but that main draw, so to speak, looks terrible in my opinion. So the armor is also kind of boring. Like, it looks nice, I guess, but it's just not interesting. Not to mention, he's a dragon. There's so many cool things you can do with dragonness. Like, he's the only character that has that aesthetic. And what do? They decide to turn him into an eagle. Like, way to steal away the only unique thing about him. Yeah, I gotta think this is D tier. I know people like this skin, but I just don't see it. Now, it wouldn't be that bad, I suppose, if they just did this as a one-off, but Freegle, this is stupid.
It's actually pretty interesting because this is a very rare example of a modern skin where most of its details are copy-pasted from another skin entirely, which, you know, used to happen a lot, but nowadays it's hardly gonna fly. No pun intended, I guess. But yeah, most of the details are carried over straight from Pyre Warrior. The gun is also carried over, and now it looks terrible. Great.
The glasses somehow make his face look even worse. Like, normally when they put glasses on something, at least it kind of looks cool. This just doesn't. The armor isn't even there to make him look kind of good. There's not even like any color differences in the eagle portion of him. He just has this jacket. The jetpack looks really, you know, generic. Not to mention this is supposed to be one of those American patriotic skins. It seems like they just made it for the sake of making it. The whole thing is a recolor, essentially. Just America, you know, like, oh, let's make an America version of it because eagle, haha. The whole skin is a joke. There's no way to go around it. We hate the skin. And the fact that this is the last skin he's gotten in so long. Oh, poor Drogoz. Anyway, this is clearly F tier. Moving on.
Or rather, I would be moving on if this weren't already over 30 minutes long. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here for part 1. I've gotten to Drogoz. So that's, what, 10 or 11 out of 50 something? So yeah, I've realized now exactly how long this is gonna take. I can't think I'd ever enjoy doing the whole YouTube thing, but you know, if you have enjoyed the video so far, please consider subscribing if you wish to see the other parts. Making videos is more so a hobby that I do in my spare time beside my job and stuff, so I plan to upload this part while part 2 is partially in production, however, so hopefully it won't be quite as long as usual with my upload schedule as if I had one. Anyway, that's really it. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, stay tuned. I hope you've enjoyed, had a chuckle or two, have a lovely day, evening, afternoon, or morning. See ya.